So finally, we have you on the show for the world to see. It's exciting.
Yep.
You have an amazing story. I have been lucky enough and grateful to have witnessed it myself and been part of it. For better or worse. A lot of times I've caused some issues, and I think that we've grown amazingly stronger as a couple through the years. And I want you to share your story with the world because it is incredible. So for those at home, this may be time to break out the Kleenex and to take it to another level of intimacy, because this is an important story I want to share, and I think Alicia will be the best person to share it. So just talking about your story, for those that don't know, Alicia and I have been through some major hurdles in life. One of the biggest ones was we lost a full-term pregnancy through delivery. After 7 days, we had to let our daughter go. And we've done some pretty amazing things from there, and I want to share that story with the world. So before we touch on the story of Ilana and Ilanas Angels, which is our nonprofit, I want you to tell the world how much of a badass you are and like what you do and in terms of going back to being an entrepreneur, starting companies, running businesses, and then we'll get into the meat of it. So
well, I'm not a self-proclaimed badass, but I will say that I started my first EIN when I was 25 years old. Relocated a group of people from Atlanta, Georgia to Tampa, Florida, where I failed miserably. Hardcore failure, like sitting on my bathroom on the phone, drinking a bottle of wine failure for almost a full year.
The entrepreneur's dream.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. From there, packaged everything up, left the crew down that had established, moved back to Atlanta for a little bit of a retrain, right? Regrouped with a really close friend of ours who helped me regather myself and realize that you could be strong, powerful, and vocal instead of just strong and powerful, right? So I found my voice a little bit there. And then opened my second EIN in Atlanta, and then got ready to expand, met Jesse Tedisco, expanded with a small team to Charlotte, North Carolina to open the third and almost final EIN.
Back in 2006.
Back in 2006.
So what was it like, and I know the story, but to share with the world, what was it like leaving Atlanta, leaving where you're from here, and all that you kind of knew behind, you had expanded once to Tampa, opened up a franchise location there, come back to Atlanta for more information, more training, and then expanded to Charlotte with myself and Anna, and opened up the company there. So what was that process like, and the mentality of like going back out on your own again?
I think the first time I was less scared because I had no taste of failure, right? I didn't know what it would feel like to lose that badly. I think by the second time though, Christina and we were just running parallel, and I think we were in each other's way. I think I was maybe in her way of developing, and I don't mean it in a bad way. She was in my way. I just think that we needed to both spread our wings differently. Yeah. So while it was terrifying, I had an amazing mentor in Chris Roberts, who kind of held my hand through it. He showed us that we could develop a foundation in Tampa, but was very encouraging for me to make a decision for myself to move to Charlotte, which at that time was closer to my sister.
Yep.
It put us closer to my godson. So there were a lot of good moves that came along with that too.
And being a business owner in general is always tough, but kind of going out there on your own and starting fresh, so to speak. What was it like when you were getting the people trained and the sales moving, and like that whole process of just cultivating something out of nothing?
It was interesting because there was an office that was there that we were merging with at the time. So it's not just a matter of digging in and grinding hard. There was a little bit of compassion that I had taken with me to make sure that the other owner that I was then retraining, he didn't feel like we was just being bombarded, right? Like we wanted to show him the respect that he had and give him his own space as well. So I'd say it was a little bit different, but in my mind, there was a foundation that was there between Anna Marie, Jesse, the team, the legs of the team that were there established, and we got a chance to build and grow from a powerhouse versus not really knowing what we were getting into.
And we started with 3 people on the expansion, me, you, and Anna.
Yeah.
And then we grew that office to 20, 25 people in a short amount of time.
Yeah, I think at one point we had 30.
Yeah. Yep.
I was thinking about the other day, we had a vice president that as soon as we hit a certain revenue goal, he came in and he slept on the couch.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it was incredible. We used to look up to those guys like they were like little demigods of sales. Like they just whatever they said was so profound, and whatever they did was like you wanted to emulate that.
Yeah,
it was for those that don't know, it was a very much tip of the spear, almost Spartan or Navy SEAL like way of sales. It was outside sales. It was cold call. It was commission. It was going door to door. It was all the fun that everyone's afraid of. But we enjoyed it. I think we were young and we were motivated, and we had a system that I enjoyed it for a while, and we had a system that we followed. And then I think that the benefit for us immediately was we were able to help people and see that impact in such a short amount of time. To take someone who has never done sales before, right, myself included at that time, and then they can go out and knock down sales right away. Mm-hmm. There was a testament to the training, and I think that was important. You were really great at that. You were great at the leadership and the training, and I did admire that. I admired how you got someone from 0 to 100 miles an hour pretty quickly. So if you could talk about maybe like training and what you did for people and some of the wins that you saw, like small or big.
Yeah. Well, so I train salespeople now, and it's a lot different because you can see some of the basic foundational elements of our training back in the day. A lot of people don't get. So to me, I look at people think about everybody that was at our house this weekend, right? Like we had family that are friends that have become family through that organization.
An old business partner, yeah.
Yeah, old business
Josh Daniel,
partner.
shout out. Chi-town.
But they have something that's really special that a lot of salespeople never get a chance to understand.
Yeah.
You know, something as simple as how to properly shake a hand or making that eye contact.
Social cues.
Being one step above someone in their energy level and never below them, and pulling them back or pulling them up. I think all of that was incredibly, it was profound for us at the time, but for us now it's foundational.
Yep.
And so I think learning those foundational elements and being able to see that impact fast in other people was rewarding to me, which is why I think I became good at it. But also understanding that there was a motivational factor. I don't know if you ever knew this. My sister was always like my little baby, right? She was never my baby, but she always treated her like that.
You're the big sister, yeah.
Yeah, so we used to have curb ass in the field, which is the day that
Tell them what curb ass is.
It's a time of day where you lose your attitude so bad that your ass literally hits the curb.
Yeah. You stop going door to door and you lose your attitude and you sit down and think about all the things you could be doing outside of walking in 90-degree weather selling coupons.
Right. So the one thing that I always had in my back pocket to get my ass off the curb or prevent it from hitting in the first place was I imagined my sister on my shoulder. What would she think of you now? Like, what would she have to say? Would she be proud? That was always really important. So I'm trying to get it in other people's minds and find out what motivated them to keep their asses off the curb.
Yep.
I think was helpful too.
Some of your biggest challenges in running the business in Charlotte, whether it was from the business operation standpoint, maybe pressures in personal life, like what were some of the things that you overcame? And I know there was a lot, and we can kind of get into the other things here, but just in the business sense, what were some of the stuff that you had to overcome?
Josh and I were just talking about this weekend, actually. It's kind of funny. So as you talk about your ego and your pride, right? In that office, when we expanded, Christina had set me up in Atlanta with this big, beautiful glass window. The sun would go down and the stars would shine in the water. It was gorgeous, right? Yep. And I go to this office in Charlotte, and I was basically in a closet.
We were in a closet.
Literally.
That was our office.
In the closet. And so I had a partner at the time who had moved away or shut down. I don't remember the circumstance.
Yeah. Zach? Was it Zach?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Zach
yeah.
And so we relocated out of the office, the closet, into the real office across the hall.
Yep.
And then when Josh came into town, I got kicked back to the closet.
That's right. Yeah.
And so just from a pride point of view, you have this new partner that comes in and you want to pull energy out of each other, and you're really excited to meet this person. And here he's been in the business less than a year. I've been in the business for over 2 years, and I had to take a back seat to him.
Which at that time, for people's context, was an eternity, because this type of business just would chew people and spit them out. Like, you'd come in for an interview, you'd see a day in the life of what you'd be doing, and most people didn't make it past that point.
Right.
There was always less than 1% of people that could actually make it from an interview to a franchisee position, and then less than 1% of those people could go to a multiple franchise owner.
Right.
So I think that speaks a lot to the people that made it to that level. So it was interesting to see how many people came and went.
Yeah.
So now you move through running a successful business and helping other people reach their goals and training people, developing people, which was always kind of a thing that you were interested in and attracted you to that side of the business. But then you took a different stance once the business kind of grew to a certain level. You went kind of back office, so to speak, and like more the behind the scenes and signing clients. And
so Chris Roberts, I mentioned earlier, is my mentor. He took me under his wing, and what happened was they always say, don't get your honey where you get your money.
Right.
And while I, to the masses, agree with that, I definitely got my honey where I got my money. And so, you know, Jesse was getting good, and he was getting ready to open his office. So we were talking about where in the country he was going to franchise. And
do you remember?
Charleston.
Charleston or Virginia Beach. We were like, our motto was going to the beach, boy, because I was in the military there, so I kind of was thinking about going back, and the beach attracted me. So
yeah, it still does.
Yeah, it does. It calls to us.
Big time.
Yeah, beach house.
So, as luck would have it, I ended up getting pregnant, and so that helped us keep Jesse in Charlotte, as well as I couldn't run that type of business and accomplish a lot of the things as a prospective mother as I wanted to accomplish, you know?
Yep.
So I did. I took a role as an AMR who is who builds out the market with product.
Yep.
So I got a chance to be more client facing, signing them up for a free service, doing artwork, really getting in on the back end of creation and creativity. So
some of our clients at the time, we had some great clients, you know, Charlotte Bobcats, Carolina Speed, AFL football team.
Yeah.
You know, Tire Kingdom, it's National Tire and Battery here, similar kind of concept. Golf courses. So we were in the fun game.
Spas.
Restaurants, hotels, golf courses, spas. And you were responsible for meeting with these owners and these executives and saying, hey, listen, we have a badass sales team that can go out there and get people in the seats.
Yeah.
Would you want to do this venture with us? And so you were really successful at that too, because you supplied our office with some amazing opportunities. I remember that.
That was my first experience of traveling too. So travel to Virginia Beach, actually.
That's right. Small world.
And built that market for you or for
somebody else. Yeah. And so now you're this was always kind of your path in life was working hard. You have a great work ethic that you've learned, specifically from your mother. I know she's a business owner herself, and she does freelance work, and she's always been a hard worker, so you got that from her. But you took kind of a different stance, and you started looking towards starting a family, and that's what we started doing. We started connecting on that level, and we were working 80 hours a week in the business, 7 days a week some weeks, because we were young, we didn't have kids, and it was fun to a degree. But then fate would have it that we got pregnant before we were married, as they say, living in sin here in the South, which is no big deal. But as far as, now life changes. Now we're running an office, and I remember watching you run meetings with like a basketball or beach ball. Mike Taranoni, I think, coined that term.
He did. He said you swallowed a beach ball.
Swallowed a beach ball, right? And so you're up there running meetings, like pointing and in the blazer, and I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking about but at that moment, we were so in the moment that I don't think that I had a chance to even step back and think about, like we do nowadays, really big about kind of stepping out and looking at things.
Yeah.
And it came quick and it came fast. And so I just remember the days where first time we were pregnant.
9 months and 2 weeks, actually.
Yeah, 9 months, 2 weeks. And then life changed pretty dramatically. We were throwing a big curveball that we weren't expecting. We didn't know this world until we were brought into it. And so if you want to tell folks about what happened with Ilana and
Well, so first of all, it was the best pregnancy ever, right? I was an amazing pregnant lady. I was hungry all the time, and I got really large.
You're romantic all the time.
I was romantic. And I got really large. And I remember her due date was March 4th, and going into labor, it was easy. Like, it wasn't like fast. It came on slow. It was inconsistent. But after having been in labor for 24 hours, we went to the doctor, and he said, well, your contractions aren't very consistent, so you're probably just getting there. So you can go home, but let me just check and make sure. And we were 7 centimeters dilated. And so he said, nope, you're in active labor. It's time to get to the hospital. So we went home, we grabbed our bags, we headed to the hospital. after, I want to say it was like 40 something hours of hard labor, back labor, no medication, 3.5 hours of pushing, our sweet little girl was born, and she was born very floppy.
Yeah. Injured at delivery is what like they would call it.
Yeah, she was injured during delivery where her umbilical cord had been compromised. So we got to keep her for a week. They took her from the hospital where we had her to the children's hospital. We basically lived there, right?
Yeah. Around the clock. We had some amazing people around us. Family was amazing, but we also had some, you called them angels in the NICU where they had her.
Yeah. I remember when they told me that we were going to have to make a decision to take her off of life support because she wasn't going to sustain life. And they had her on cooling blankets for 3 days. Yeah. And Jesse had not had a chance to hold her yet. And I told the nurse, I was like, they can't tell Jesse that before he holds her. He won't hold her. Yeah. Like, my fear was that you would not hold her before, if you knew. And so she saw the doctor stop you at the entrance of the NICU and give you the bad news. Yeah. And she prepared that baby. She unplugged everything that needed to be plugged in so that when you walked in, you sat down, she shoved her in your arms. Do you remember that? Yeah. And I always thought that was pretty amazing to have that much courage to put somebody in a situation that they may not volunteer to do. But I always thought it was pretty important for you to get a chance to hold her while she was living. Yeah,
the whole thing was surreal. I mean, just once you go through something like that where there's a traumatic birth or there's something serious that could happen, people don't usually tell you that side of it until you're in that world. And I think they said like 6 or 7 out of 10 pregnancies have some sort of complication that could be life-threatening or it could be an issue. And you don't know about that till you're in that world. So it was definitely surreal. And I remember holding her until she took her last breath, and that was like a long time. It wasn't as quick as it seems in the movies where someone just lays there and their eyes roll back and they look peaceful and it's quiet and it's like a minute and they're gone. She was gasping, kind of like really fighting for a long time in my mind, and it felt like it was a good 8 to 10 minutes. Like it wasn't quick for me.
It's interesting how we remember things a little differently.
Yeah. What were your thoughts?
I think it wasn't recorded. Yeah, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
No, I think I was just wrapped up in emotion. I mean, just sitting there. I mean, for me, I was sitting in your lap, and I held her for a minute, and then passed her to you, and you were holding both of us. And I don't know. I think that if it was dramatic like that, my mind has opted not to remember it. Yeah. It was one of those things where you just your mind doesn't know how to prepare or endure that, so it just happens, and then you just respond accordingly, and there was no prescribed way to handle that. No way. So it was one of those things where I think for the better part of the first few months after it happened for me, I just tried to delve into work a little bit more. And I always tell the analogy of whenever you swipe poop under the rug, after a certain amount of time, it starts to stink and you got to take care of the mess. You can't leave it there. And that's what I tried to do. I used work as a way to, a lot of people probably would. Yeah. Use your job, your company, your career to plug into, some people plug into family, extracurricular, some people go the wrong way and, turn to booze and drugs kind of thing. And for me, that wasn't an option. It was always let's try to put one foot in front of the other. And after about 3 months, I feel like I just was probably super depressed, gained a ton of weight, wasn't the guy, I had to be the rah-rah sales coach guy, and I was not motivated to even get out of bed every day. So standing in front of a group of people that were learning and growing and wanted to be motivated, I felt like a fraud. And that was when we shut the business down, not too long after that. I think about that time period, though. So in that first 3 months when you were rock hard, and even if it was fake, right? Even if you were just having
fake it to make it kind of thing.
Yeah, make it up. That's probably when I was at my most weak, right? And so as soon as I started to gain a little bit of strength, you were able to catch your breath and deal with it. Yeah. And I stood up, and you hear about marriages that don't last or survive. I mean, there were times in that period where I was mad at you.
Of course.
For being so strong and being able to get up and live your life and not cry every day. And, I was maybe envious, but mad at you. And I think that somehow we were able to persevere through that, so that here we are, 11 years later, married with 2 children and getting through. But that first year was hell. And I was thinking about it. Her birthday just passed in March. And I couldn't tell you how we survived that. I have no idea how we survived it, but we did. Yeah. Fairly gracefully, I guess. I mean, if you can consider anything to have been graceful, but yeah, we did.
We carried on, and we weren't perfect, and so much so that we started identifying we needed help that we weren't, able to give to each other without tools that we didn't know existed. And so I know that is a perfect segue for coaching and therapy, I think. And we did it. We didn't do it right away. I think that you found a group that you touched on a little bit, Kindermorn in Charlotte, where they helped you with that process. But for couples, it started off under the guise of like coaching for me. Like it was coaching where I wanted to get business coaching and life coaching. And, I had a screwed up life, so I needed to figure some stuff out. And under that, obviously, when you're married or you're in a serious relationship, you can't have coaching without relationship advice. And so relationship advice turned into full-blown couples counseling with an amazing company here in Georgia called Broken Chains International. Their main headquarters is here, but again, their name is international, so they are worldwide. And an amazing human being, Kevin Daly.
Amazing.
Our Irish brother, as he likes to call himself. This unbelievable gentleman that I believed in tremendously and felt comfortable and safe enough with to not only tell him my life story, which the world will hear one day, but also bring you into the fold. And it was a blessing, like 150 million%. We're probably together because of that.
No question.
And if you want to talk about your experience with Kevin and our coaching and everything there.
Yeah, so I think that when you have, it's a really unique coaching style. It's actually called an intensive, where they bring a family in and they break down everything. I mean, I think over 2-3 days.
Yeah.
Break it all down.
2 8-hour days back to back.
Yeah, and cleanse your. My mom was great enough with all her work ethic and badass yenery to come and get Grayson at the time. We didn't have William yet. And we got to spend the night together and do homework together. And we went to the hotel that we got married in, which at the time we just rolled our eyes because I don't know if we knew we were going to survive that.
We were probably on the brink of serious contemplating divorce.
We had both contacted attorneys.
Yeah, so it was real. It wasn't just like, I threatened you, it was like we were done. And this was like, all right, we're going to give this 100%, but this is it. Like, if this doesn't work, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it worked. And I'll say that there have been some peaks and valleys since then. But, super grateful for Kevin Daly and his team. If anybody ever needs any type of marital support, that is the route. It's expensive a little bit, but totally worth it.
I think that people nowadays are getting to a point where they're okay with sharing their life and their story, and it's not taboo anymore. If you've had a checkered past or if you've done something you're not proud of, like everybody loves a comeback story. Everybody wants to evolve, and everybody wants to grow to be a great business owner, great husband, great mother, great friend, have a great connection with the higher power, whatever that is for you, right? So I think that opening yourself up, whether it's individual or couples, counseling, coaching, therapy, whatever you got to call it, mentorship, you can't do it alone. You can't do life alone. You need great people around you in business. You need great contacts, colleagues, partners. In life, you need great friends, family. You have to have a great marriage, and to do that, you need help. And so we did that. And I think for me, it was eye-opening how much work I needed to work on myself to be able to give the things that you need. And there's even stuff to this day that I may pale in comparison to where I will be one day, but always working towards those things, I think, is the reprieve, and trying to get better and work on each other. So one another to be better for each other. And then we didn't start that right away. That took a few years.
A lot of years,
yeah. It was probably 2014, 2015. When maybe somewhere around there.
15, because Gray was already here.
Yeah, so, and it's been intermittent since then. It's never like something that you're just done with. Life's a journey. You have to learn how to navigate the world, and sometimes you still need additional tools. And I think that ongoing education is one of the best things that we have in this world.
Yeah, and education is wrapped in a lot of different little Easter eggs, right?
Yeah.
But it's really, truly, I don't think anybody can fully absorb what they're learning until they learn enough about themselves to see what they can and can't and will and won't tolerate, you know?
That's right. So you you obviously have touched on a huge piece of our story with Ilana. And then after Ilana, a few years after Ilana, we actually had another pregnancy that went a few months, and then we miscarried. And that process was, in its own way, is equally as painful and surreal and weird.
I think what made that one hard was that I tried to minimize it. And I would say this to any person that has a miscarriage or deals with someone that has a miscarriage: a dream dies when you have a miscarriage. Yeah. And people try to minimize it. I tried to minimize ours. Because it wasn't Ilana, a full baby, right, or, you know, a child. People lose children all the time. And I, like, you can't compare grief, right? You can't compare one situation to the other. And so if you have someone in your life that has a miscarriage, it is as impactful and painful to them as any other death that they experience.
It is.
I think that really gets minimized more than it should in society.
You always, I learned this from you, and I know you got this maybe from one of the folks, maybe at Kindermore or somewhere, but it was a loss is a loss. It doesn't matter if someone was pregnant for a week, or if it was, God forbid, someone's 20-year-old son got killed by a drunk driver driving down the road. Like, certainly, losing a child is losing a child. That's it. And owning that and knowing that. And so whether we're stubborn or whether it was just fate, we didn't give up. We ended up having our third pregnancy, which we have a beautiful 4.5, almost 5-year-old son.
Stop it.
Yeah, he's almost 5 in July. And he changed our world, and we've had to become parents and, you know, get past just being career chasers, and like now we have this amazing son. And then we had William shortly after. He's 2.5, so we have an almost 5 and a 2.5-year-old, and those losses still are there, and they'll never go away, but being able to have energy and focus and love poured into them has really been, I think, a big thing. And I think for me, at least, not that maybe it kept my sanity. I don't know. It just was one of those things where I always wanted to be a dad. I always wanted to be a really good dad. And, you know, there's times I suck at it.
Check that box.
Yeah,
you're good.
There's times I suck at it. But I think that has been a really good blessing to be able to go from missing out on the first 2 children to having 2 amazing children. So
they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, and so, you know, Grayson will look you in the face and tell you he really wishes he had a chance to meet his big sister. Yeah. You know?
I think it's important that people know why. So you're really good at, you know, remembrance and birthdays and balloon releases and things. And so, if you want to talk about always keeping that on the forefront and never letting that die. And making sure that we always go visit her grave when we're in Charlotte, and doing the flowers over and making it look pretty, and taking the boys and they go to her grave and they talk to her. Like, so if you want to touch on that.
So I think it was a month away from her birthday. So it was probably February. We were coming back from visiting Anna Marie in Raleigh, and we were driving down towards Charlotte, and I just couldn't contain myself, you know, just emotional disaster. And now we're talking about a full year of that raw emotion with some peaks and some valleys to kind of help lean you up along the way when you were feeling like you needed to grieve. And I remember it as clear as day. It's almost like we should have not been driving, because you looked over and you said, you know, at some point you're gonna have to start celebrating her life instead of grieving her death. And at that point, it was like a light bulb. I needed to hear that. I hadn't heard it before.
I don't remember that. That's wow.
Really?
Yeah.
It was a changing point. So what we stopped doing, or what I stopped doing, was figuring out what I was going to do to celebrate her death. A month later, to putting together a birthday party, and we had, you know, the folks from Kindermore, and we had family. I think we had 15 people that came graveside. Yeah. And we got a chance to, you know, honor her memory and talk about that year. Because while it was hard for us, I mean, there's grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins that also, you know, miss out on her little life. And so we released balloons, and then we went back and we had birthday cake and ice cream and snacks and community, and it was great.
We just never gave up on her, and we never gave up on the idea. And the 7 days that she was here on Earth, were super impactful, and she needs to be celebrated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did that every year, and then 3 years later, when Grandma died, Kathy Lou passed away, we were driving and we met Anna in Charlotte, and she was like, "Don't get mad at me, but I have an idea, and it's called Ilanas Angels," or something like that, right? Yeah. And we've had the same idea. So out of, again, community and love and friendship and family, birthed the idea of Ilanas Angels. So for years, we just, right around her birthday, we would bring people together and we would release balloons. And, when the babies were born, William and Grayson, they just naturally fell into that fold. But I remember being pregnant with Grayson, and we had a balloon release at a park in Dunwoody. And there were 50 people that showed up to this celebration. And it changed the tune for it a little bit. It wasn't just...
With minimal marketing, it was just word of mouth. It was
family, friends, yeah.
And it reresonated with so many people because you don't realize, but a lot of people have experienced a miscarriage. People have experienced the loss of a child, and it gave it a platform to almost be okay and not be so taboo. Like, I don't think it was ever really taboo for me, but I've seen people, and it's okay. It's not a bad thing if you have kind of locked it away and don't want to talk about it, because it is a very hurtful thing. Mm-hmm. But for us, we used it as a light to shine on the 7 days we had with her, and the memory that still carries on many years after she's gone. So from the balloon release in Dunwoody, we had a lot of support, people that heard about it through word of mouth, and family members that spread the word, and it was tremendous in the outpouring of love. And we had a lot of local businesses that wanted to support in any way they could with donations of like coffee and breakfast foods and all sorts of different amazing things. So there's a lot of belief out there, and there's a lot of cause behind it. So where do you see it going? Like, what do you want for Ilanas Angels, and what have we done kind of since then, and like, what do you see happening in the future with it?
From that, even that one event at the park, we had a couple consecutive years there.
Yeah.
But that one event even pulled strangers over from the playground to say, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And you have to believe in a higher power at that point, right? Because I remember one set of strangers that came over joined the circle and released a balloon because they had experienced a loss of a child also. Yeah. And so I think things like that become very powerful. It was inspiring to me enough to go back and dig around and do research on nonprofits and how to open a nonprofit properly, go through the process of 501c3 enrollment. So we're an official nonprofit, which essentially means we could take donations before, but it didn't allow our contributors to expense or write off to their taxes.
Right. Yeah.
And so 501c3 allows us the opportunity to do that. Now, with those funds, what we would hope to do is, we talked about therapy and how strongly it's helped us and impacted us in different ways, but to create an organization of a safe place for therapy. There are a lot of families that did Kindermorn with me, and a lot of us were solo, right? Like, you were going through your time of like, nope, I got to stand strong. You're good. You go get your therapy at that time, right? Yeah.
What a fool.
To allow, well, I don't necessarily know that it is.
Now, and I definitely could have used it, but I don't know. I wasn't receptive, so probably would have just fell on deaf ears anyway. So. Well,
and think about how our dynamic is too. Like, you needed that to be strong like that, and I needed to, crumble. And when you needed to crumble, I was able to be strong, I think, because of that. And so I think it played its right role. Yep. But there were a lot of women who didn't go by themselves, So to give them a safe spot to go if, their significant others don't want to be a part of it. On the other side, there were men that wanted to come and be a part of things. Yeah. There's an organization here in Atlanta who tells a crazy story about an 85-year-old woman who walked into their infant death, support group. And she said, "Ma'am, can I help you?" And she said, "My husband died last week, and he never allowed me to grieve the loss of my infant baby that I lost." We're talking 60-something years ago, So that's crazy to think that there are people out there that aren't dealing with it. So to provide them, whether it's financial or whether it's just an opportunity to have someone who's been in a similar situation put their arms around them, I think that's what we would like to do. So, I've got a couple friends that can help put those support groups together, meaning they're certified and they have the proper education. That I wouldn't be leading a group, right? But we would need some support to come in and do that. And then also opening our doors to people that don't know what to say when they have friends or family or loved ones who have lost a child. Those are most of the calls I get today. Yep. Hey, you know, I've got a friend, I'm headed to the hospital, her child passed away, she's having to deliver a stillborn. Tell me what not to say, you know? And that's a very real, very grown-up thing to think when you're having to face that situation for someone who needs you to be around them because they need the love and support. So I think to open up support groups and have an open line of communication and funding to help them along the way would be outstanding.
Yep, I agree. It's an amazing calling, kind of a crucible by fire, where it's something that you never think that you would be spearheading or bringing to the world, but there's a reason why we are. There's a reason why it was us. You know, you talk about higher power, and that could be different for everybody, but there's definitely a reason why it happened, and it's not for naught, so to speak. It's going to be something where if you can, I've always been told as a speaker, if you go into a room and you have a few hundred people there, if you can change the life of one person, that's all that matters. Most people want to go in there and crush it and like change everybody's life, but if you can change one person's life with this mission and, you know, save them, God forbid they're thinking suicide or they're thinking something horrible or whatever, harming themselves or someone else, or not even that serious, but even if it's getting them through another day and like, you know, having a better day, having a better moment, right? It could be something that small. I mean, that's where it is. And I think that having those services in place and those people that we know, those connections that can get them to where they're in a better place and they can breathe. I mean, a lot of times it's just being able to breathe and not being so caught up with emotion or frustration or all those I guess, deserved parts of grief. I mean, it's not a bad thing to feel shameful or anger or resentment. I mean, it's part of that process, but you have to be aware of it and try to work through it. Yeah. And I think what you're doing is shine a light on it and walk people through that in life is one of the higher purposes you can have. So
thank you. I think that little girl's 7-day life has held more impact in meeting than a lot of people get a chance to do in their entire
without a doubt
grown-up lives.
I agree. So I know that we're still kind of building this, working on this, and as this season of life is, we're focusing in on building a business and building a career and running a family and all these great things, and very lucky to have those opportunities. But as we build Ilanas Angels, if you want to just kind of tell the folks where it stands today, if it has a presence where it lives. I know Facebook has a little community that we're growing and we're building, but anything there that you want to talk to, if they want to look at Ilanas Angels or find more information, contact you, certain things like that.
Yep. So an organization like this has a chance to impact so many people, and there are so many folks that we've had that have volunteered to help out along the way. I'll say that it's not nearly as advanced and developed as it hopefully will be one day, simply because I don't want to give it a half effort. I think it's something that if I'm going to put arms out to wrap around families that need it, I would like for them to be fully engaged and fully wrapped. My arms, that is. And so you can find us on Facebook. We are also on Twitter. But mostly if you need support or if you have a conversation, you can reach out to aliciatedisco@yahoo.com or my cell phone number 770-685-4852 and let us know how we can support you as we're growing.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you being candid and open. I think your story is going to resonate with a lot of people. And please, if you're out there and you need some help in some of those situations, feel free to contact either one of us for sure, and we'll make sure we put you in the right path. So
you're not alone.
You're not alone. I'm Jesse Tedisco. This is my beautiful, amazing wife, Alicia Tedisco. Thanks so much for your time. See you on the next episode.